That expensive bottle of extra virgin olive oil sitting on your kitchen counter right now is likely a lie. We are not talking about a slight exaggeration of quality or a marketing embellishment. We are talking about a fundamental chemical deception. Statistics suggest that nearly 70% of the olive oil sold on supermarket shelves does not meet the legal criteria for the label on the bottle. You believe you are buying the healthy, cold-pressed juice of an olive, a staple of the Mediterranean diet known to extend life and improve heart health. The reality is that you are likely pouring a rancid, oxidized mixture of sunflower seed oil, chlorophyll, and beta-carotene over your salad, a cocktail that has been chemically deodorized to strip away the taste of rot. The shock isn't that companies lie to save money. The shock is that your palate has been so conditioned by decades of fraud that you probably prefer the fake oil to the real thing. You're watching Protect Our Cart, exposing the grocery deception. If you value this depth of analysis, subscribing ensures you don't miss the next investigation. To understand how 7 specific brands in the UK have managed to sell millions of liters of fraudulent oil, we first have to dismantle the myth of the supply chain. Most British consumers operate under the assumption that the grocery aisle is a regulated sanctuary. We trust that if a label says "Product of Italy," the olives were grown on a sun-drenched hillside in Tuscany, pressed by a local artisan, and bottled for our consumption. This is the narrative sold to us by aggressive marketing campaigns and rustic packaging featuring rolling hills and old stone farmhouses. But the grocery industry relies on your ignorance of international trade laws to move product. The label "Product of Italy" does not legally require the olives to be grown in Italy. It often only requires that the oil was bottled there. This loophole allows massive conglomerates to import substandard, rotting olives from Tunisia, Morocco, or Spain, ship them to an industrial facility in Italy to be chemically refined, and then stamp a premium Italian flag on the glass. This is not a victimless crime, nor is it a new one. In the industry, this is known as the agromafia phenomenon. For decades, organized crime syndicates have realized that the profit margins on adulterated olive oil are comparable to cocaine trafficking, but without the risk of heavy prison sentences. It is high-reward, low-risk counterfeiting. The mechanism of the fraud is sophisticated. It begins with lamp oil. This is the lowest grade of olive oil, made from olives that have fallen to the ground and begun to ferment and rot. It is called lamp because, historically, it was used as fuel for oil lamps. It is not fit for human consumption due to high acidity and foul organoleptic qualities. In a regulated world, this would be discarded or used for industrial lubrication. In the world of mass-market grocery retail, this is the raw material for your dinner. Through a process of heavy industrial refining, high heat, and chemical solvents, the bad odors and tastes are stripped from this lamp oil. The result is a colorless, odorless, tasteless fat. To transform this industrial lubricant into extra virgin olive oil, producers blend it with a tiny amount of real, high-quality oil to reintroduce a hint of olive flavor. They then add chlorophyll to dye it that distinct greenish-gold hue that consumers associate with freshness. Finally, beta-carotene is added to simulate the cloudiness of a natural press. The result is a product that looks like olive oil, pours like olive oil, and to the untrained British palate, tastes enough like olive oil to pass inspection. But chemically, it is dead. It lacks the polyphenol, the antioxidants, and the anti-inflammatory properties that justify the high price tag. You are paying a premium for a placebo. The scale of this operation in the United Kingdom is particularly staggering because the UK is a non-producing nation. Unlike Italy, Greece, or Spain, where local populations have a cultural and sensory memory of what fresh oil tastes like, grassy, peppery, and slightly bitter, the British market is historically disconnected from the source. We are an import economy when it comes to liquid fats. This makes the UK the perfect dumping ground for the fraud. When a tanker of oil is rejected by a more discerning market, or when a batch fails a chemical purity test in a producing nation, it doesn't get thrown away. It gets redirected to markets where the consumers are less likely to notice. It ends up in the house brand bottles and the mid-tier labels that populate the shelves of Tesco, Sainsbury's, and Asda. The deception goes deeper than just mixing good oil with bad. A common technique involves cutting olive oil with entirely different seed oils. Hazelnut oil is the preferred adulterant because its chemical composition is remarkably similar to olive oil, making it difficult to detect with standard laboratory tests. A brand can dilute their product with 40% hazelnut oil, drastically cutting their production costs, and sell it to you at full price. Unless the retailer is conducting expensive DNA testing or advanced chromatography on every batch, which they rarely do, the fraud slips through the net. This puts consumers with nut allergies at severe, undisclosed risk, all for the sake of a few pence per unit in profit margin. We must also address the concept of rancidity. True extra virgin olive oil is a fresh fruit juice. It is perishable. It has enemies: light, heat, and air. From the moment an olive is picked, the clock starts ticking. High-quality oil is pressed within hours of harvest. However, the mass-market brands we are investigating often use olives that have been sitting in piles for days or weeks, waiting for transport. By the time they are pressed, the oxidation process has already begun. To mask this, the oil is bottled in clear glass or plastic, which allows UV light to further degrade the contents before you even buy it. When you taste a generic supermarket olive oil and describe it as smooth or buttery with no bite at the back of the throat, you are actually tasting flat, oxidized oil. Real, high-phenolic olive oil should make you cough. That peppery kick is the sign of the oleocanthal, the anti-inflammatory compound. If your oil is smooth and greasy, it is likely defected. The industry has successfully trained you to identify the defect as the quality standard, ensuring that when you finally taste the real thing, you might mistakenly think it has gone bad. This sets the stage for the specific brands we have identified. These are not obscure names found in the back of a discount warehouse. These are household names. These are the bottles you reach for on autopilot because they are on offer, or because the label looks traditional and trustworthy. We have analyzed the supply chains, the harvest dates or lack thereof, and the chemical profiles associated with these major players. The findings reveal a systematic disregard for the extra virgin standard. The term extra virgin is a legal definition involving specific acidity levels, below 0.8%, and zero sensory defects. Yet, independent testing repeatedly finds that the oils inside these branded bottles fail to meet these standards, technically demoting them to virgin or even lamp anti-grade, despite the premium label on the front. The economic pressure on these brands is immense. Climate change and the Xylella fastidiosa bacterium have decimated olive groves across southern Europe, driving the wholesale price of real olive oil to record highs. Yet, the price on the UK supermarket shelf has not risen in correlation with the raw material costs. If the cost of production doubles but the retail price remains stable, the difference is being made up somewhere. That somewhere is quality. It is mathematically impossible to sell genuine extra virgin olive oil at some of the price points we see in British supermarkets today without cutting corners, blending with old stock, or engaging in outright fraud. As we move into the specific breakdown of these 7 offenders, keep in mind that the bottle itself is often designed to mislead. You will see terms like cold-pressed and first pressing, archaic terms from a time when olives were pressed by stone mats. Modern production uses centrifuges. There is no second press. These marketing buzzwords are unregulated fluff designed to build a facade of artisanal quality around an industrial slurry. The deception is total, from the liquid to the label to the glass it sits in. And it is happening in your local aisle right now. If you took the bottle currently sitting on your kitchen counter and poured its contents into a wick lamp, it would likely burn with a steady, clear flame. That isn't a metaphor for purity. It is a literal classification. A disturbing percentage of the budget olive oil sold in UK supermarkets is chemically indistinguishable from lamp anti, a grade of oil historically reserved for fueling street lamps, not for human consumption. The only reason you are pouring it over your salad instead of burning it for light is a rigorous industrial process of deodorization, bleaching, and recoloring that strips away the stench of rotting fruit and replaces it with a neutral golden lye. This brings us to the first major category of offender found on British shelves: the Italian imposter. Walk down the aisle of any major high street supermarket, and you will be bombarded by imagery of Tuscany. You see rolling hills, rustic stone farmhouses, and the Italian tricolor flag draped proudly across the neck of the bottle. The brand names sound authentically Latin, evoking centuries of family tradition. But if you turn that bottle around and squint at the microscopic text near the barcode, you will find the legal disclaimer that unravels the entire charade. Produced with oils from EU and non-EU countries. This creates a paradox. How can a brand built entirely on Italian heritage sell you oil that never touched an Italian tree? The answer lies in the bottled-in loophole. International trade laws allow companies to import massive tanker ships full of cheap, low-grade oil from Spain, Tunisia, Greece, or Morocco, ship it to a processing facility in Italy, and simply put it into glass bottles there. Because the final stage of packaging occurred on Italian soil, they are legally permitted to plaster the front of the bottle with Italian imagery. You are not paying for Italian agriculture, you are paying for Italian glass. The liquid inside is a multinational blend of the cheapest commodities available on the global spot market, mixed together until it hits a baseline acidity that barely scrapes past the legal definition of edible. The deception deepens when we look at the light and mild olive oil brands. These are perhaps the most insidious, because they market themselves to consumers who are hesitant about the strong, peppery flavor of real olive oil. They pitch light oil as a diet-friendly or versatile alternative. In reality, light is industry code for refined. This oil started its life as rancid. The olives used were likely gathered from the ground, known as ground olives, where they had already begun to ferment and rot before they even reached the mill. If you were to press these olives naturally, the resulting juice would taste foul, smell like compost, and be dangerously high in free fatty acids. It would be illegal to sell as food. So the industry treats it. They heat the oil to over 200 degrees Celsius, stripping away the flavor, the smell, and crucially, all the antioxidants and polyphenol that make olive oil healthy in the first place. What remains is a clear, odorless fat. To make it look like olive oil again, they blend in a tiny percentage, often less than 5%, of actual extra virgin oil to add a splash of yellow color and a hint of aroma. When you buy light olive oil, you are buying damaged goods that have been chemically scrubbed into submission. This industrial alchemy is not just a matter of taste. It is a nutritional heist. You buy olive oil because you have been told it is heart-healthy, packed with anti-inflammatories, and essential for a Mediterranean diet. But these refined oils are pro-inflammatory. The heat processing creates trans fats and destroys the delicate compounds that protect your arteries. You are paying a premium for a health product that is functionally identical to cheap vegetable oil, merely dressed up in a prestige costume. If you appreciate the work we do to dismantle these marketing facades and want to support further investigations into the food supply chain, a simple like on this video goes a long way in helping us expose these practices. Beyond the processing, we have to talk about the harvest date scam. Real olive oil is a fruit juice. Like orange juice, it has a shelf life. It degrades. It oxidizes. It goes bad. A genuine bottle of quality oil will always tell you exactly when the olives were harvested, usually within the last 12 to 18 months. The fake brands found in UK retailers almost never list a harvest date. Instead, they list a best before date. This is a strategic omission. A best before date is often set 2 to 3 years after bottling. But here is the trick. The oil might have sat in a storage tank for 2 years before it was even bottled. You could be buying oil that was extracted 4 or 5 years ago. It is tired, oxidized, and essentially dead. To hide this, producers will mix new harvest oil with old harvest oil, blending the fresh with the stale to extend the volume. It's the equivalent of a bakery crumbling week-old bread into the fresh dough to bulk up the loaf. The consumer, having never tasted fresh, vibrant oil, which should taste like green grass, tomato leaf, and artichoke, accepts the flat, greasy, slightly metallic taste of the supermarket brand as normal. Then there is the issue of truffle oil. While not a standard olive oil, it sits in the same section and commands a massive price markup, often targeting the luxury shopper. This is almost universally a complete fabrication. Most supermarket truffle oils have never been near a truffle. They are standard, low-grade olive oils injected with a synthetic petroleum-derived chemical called 2,4-dithiapentane. This chemical mimics the aroma of truffles but lacks the complexity or flavor. It is a perfume added to a carrier oil. When you drizzle this over your pasta, you are essentially eating laboratory-synthesized scent molecules suspended in cheap fat, Yet the price per liter suggests you are consuming a rare delicacy. The problem is compounded by the sheer scale of the fraud. In 2019, Europol seized 150,000 liters of fake olive oil in a raid that spanned Germany and Italy. The oil was actually soybean oil colored with chlorophyll to look green. This isn't a historical anecdote. It is the current reality of the market. The profit margins on fake olive oil are higher than the profit margins on cocaine, with significantly less risk. If a drug dealer gets caught, they go to prison for decades. If an olive oil distributor gets caught mislabeling soybean oil, they pay a fine that is a fraction of their monthly profits and rebrand under a new name. In the UK specifically, we are vulnerable because we do not produce our own oil. We are entirely reliant on imports, and the supply chain is murky. When a bottle says, "packed in the UK," it tells you nothing about the origin. The oil could have changed hands 5 times before reaching the British bottling plant. Each handover is an opportunity for dilution. A tanker from Greece might be topped up with sunflower oil in Italy, then shipped to the UK where it is mixed with old Spanish stock. By the time it reaches your trolley, the chemical fingerprint of the oil is so muddied that even standard lab tests struggle to determine its true lineage. Consumers are often told to perform the fridge test, the idea that if you put olive oil in the fridge and it solidifies, it is real. This is a myth that the counterfeiters are well aware of. While it is true that the monounsaturated fats in real olive oil harden at low temperatures, high oleic sunflower oil and canola oil can mimic this behavior. Furthermore, sophisticated adulterers add waxes to the blend to ensure it passes visual inspections. Relying on home tests is a recipe for false confidence. The fraud is molecular, and it requires advanced chromatography to detect, technology that the average shopper obviously does not have access to. The reality of the extra virgin label in a discount supermarket is that it is statistically unlikely to be true. True extra virgin olive oil is difficult to produce. It requires healthy trees, careful hand or mechanical harvesting where the fruit never touches the ground, immediate pressing within hours, and careful storage. It is an expensive, labor-intensive agricultural product. When you see a liter of extra virgin oil selling for 4 or 5 pounds, the math simply does not work. The cost of production alone, before shipping, packaging, and retailer markup, exceeds that price. The only way to hit that price point is to cheat. You are not finding a bargain. You are buying a different product entirely, mislabeled to secure your trust. This brings us to the visual deception of the bottle itself. Notice how many of these fake brands use clear glass. They want you to see the beautiful golden green color of the liquid. This is a trap. Light is the enemy of olive oil. UV radiation breaks down the oil, causing photooxidation that turns it rancid in a matter of weeks. A producer who genuinely cares about the quality of their oil will always use dark glass or tin to protect the contents. Brands that use clear glass are prioritizing marketing over integrity. They know the bright color sells, and they know the oil inside is already so processed and stabilized that a little more oxidation won't make a noticeable difference to a consumer palate that has been trained to accept mediocrity. But mediocrity is the best-case scenario. The worst-case scenario is active deception, and nowhere is this more prevalent than in the bottles labeled light or pure. You might assume, quite reasonably, that light olive oil refers to a lower calorie count or perhaps a delicate flavor profile suitable for baking. That is exactly what the manufacturers want you to think. In reality, light is a marketing term for chemically refined oil that was likely unfit for human consumption in its raw state. This oil often starts as lampanti oil made from rotting, grounded olives that is so high in acidity and defects that it smells like compost. To make it edible, it is subjected to a brutal industrial refining process involving high heat, steam, and chemical solvents like hexane. This strips away absolutely everything: the flavor, the aroma, the color, and crucially, every single health benefit. The antioxidants and polyphenol are obliterated. What is left is a colorless, odorless fat that is then injected with a tiny splash of virgin oil just to give it a vague yellowish hue. When you buy light olive oil, you are not buying a diet product. You are buying a zombie product, dead oil dressed up to look alive. This brings us to the fifth and perhaps most pervasive category of deception on British supermarket shelves: the Italian imposter. Walk down the aisle of any major high street grocer, and you will see bottles adorned with Tuscan landscapes, Roman pillars, and the Italian tricolor flag. The brand names sound authentically Mediterranean. The text on the front screams, "Bottled in Italy." But turn that bottle around and get out your magnifying glass. Buried in the microscopic print on the back label, you will find a code that legally absolves them of the lie. Blend of EU and non-EU olive oils. This is the industry's golden loophole. Bottled in Italy does not mean the olives were grown in Italy. It does not mean the oil was pressed in Italy. It simply means that vast tankers of cheap, subsidized oil were shipped from Spain, Tunisia, hardly regulated farms in Turkey or Morocco, and then funneled into bottles at a facility near Naples or Florence. The Italian imagery is a costume. You are paying a premium for a heritage that does not exist inside that glass. If you are finding this investigation into the grocery industry valuable, and you want to see more exposés on the everyday products we trust, supporting this channel helps us continue the research required to decode these labels. The deception deepens when we look at the sixth category, which targets the aspirational home cook, truffle-infused olive oil. This is often the most expensive bottle on the shelf, sold as a luxury finishing oil. The shocking reality is that the vast majority of truffle oils sold in the UK have never been in the same room as a real truffle. Real truffles are incredibly rare and their flavor is volatile. It vanishes quickly when infused. What you are actually tasting is a laboratory-created chemical compound called 2,4-dithiapentane. It is a synthetic petroleum-derived additive that mimics the strong, garlicky funk of a white truffle. Manufacturers take their lowest grade, most flavorless oil, often the refined stuff we discussed earlier, and dose it with this chemical perfume. It is a double deception. The base oil is poor quality because a good extra virgin oil would overpower the fake truffle flavor, and the truffle itself is a lie. You are paying £50 a liter for cheap refined fat and a few drops of synthesized aroma. Finally, we arrive at the seventh brand archetype, which is the most difficult to spot because it hides in plain sight: the private label organic. Many consumers pivot to supermarket own-brand organic oils, assuming the organic certification guarantees quality. While organic certification does ensure the olives were grown without certain pesticides, it does not guarantee the quality of the milling or storage. An organic olive can still be left to ferment in a pile before pressing. Organic oil can still be stored in clear glass under fluorescent supermarket lights for 6 months until it goes rancid. Rancidity is not just a flavor defect. It is a health hazard. When olive oil oxidizes, the healthy fats break down into free radicals, the very things you are trying to avoid by eating a Mediterranean diet. Consuming rancid oil causes inflammation in the body. It is a cruel irony that the millions of British consumers trying to improve their heart health by switching from butter to supermarket olive oil may actually be increasing their oxidative stress because the product they are buying is already spoiled. So, how do you navigate this minefield? How do you ensure that the liquid gold you are drizzling over your salad is actually doing your body good? You have to stop reading the front of the label and start interrogating the back. First, ignore best before dates. They are arbitrary timelines set by the bottler, usually 2 to 3 years after packaging, not after harvest. The only date that matters is the harvest date. Real, high-integrity producers will always print the harvest year on the bottle. If you are buying oil in 2024, you want a 2023 harvest. If there is no harvest date, put it back. They are hiding the age of the oil for a reason. Second, look for the specific cultivar. Generic oil just says olives. Quality oil tells you exactly what variety of olive was used: Coratina, Picule, Arbequina. This is like the difference between a wine label saying red wine versus Cabernet Sauvignon. Specificity is the enemy of fraud. If they can tell you the farm, the region, and the olive type, the supply chain is likely short and transparent. Third, look for the free fatty acid or acidity count. Extra virgin olive oil must legally be below 0.8% acidity. But the really good stuff, the medicine, is often below 0.3%. Producers who achieve this low acidity are proud of it and will often print it on the label. If you don't see an acidity level, it's likely hovering right at the legal limit, dancing on the edge of mediocrity. And finally, trust your senses. Real extra virgin olive oil should not taste merely greasy or flat. It should taste alive. It should be grassy, herbaceous, tomato leafy, or peppery. Crucially, when you swallow a tablespoon of real, high polyphenol oil, it should catch in your throat. It should make you want to cough. That tickle, that pungency is the oleocanthal, the anti-inflammatory compound that mimics ibuprofen. If your oil slides down like water with zero sensation, it is dead. The olive oil industry relies on the fact that most of us have forgotten what real food tastes like. They bank on us prioritizing convenience and price over provenance. But every time you buy a bottle of light oil or a generic Italian blend, you are voting for a system that profits from deception. Conversely, every time you spend a little more on a bottle from a specific estate with a harvest date, you are keeping a genuine artisan in business and investing in your own longevity. The bottles are on the shelf right now, waiting for your choice. The fake ones are shiny, cheap, and backed by millions in advertising. The real ones are darker, quieter, and tell you exactly when they were born. Now that you know the difference, the choice is yours. Don't let them fool you again.